As Harry said, I'm Principal Geospatial Consultant here at Geospatial Insight. And, well, I guess I want to address one question first, which is why did we think it was a good idea to have an Apollo seminar around about now? And in order to do that, we need to go back in time to the late 2000s. I've been involved in the distribution of hexagon geospatial software in the UK for, well, let's leave it at quite some time now. But back then and during that time, I've been mostly involved with ERDAS Imagine, so remote sensing and image processing. But of course, I've been exposed to all the other hexagon geospatial products as well. And so around about that time, I went on a training course to look at Apollo. And, well, it wasn't my favorite training course, let's put it that way. I spent the first day trying and failing to get all the components together in order to install Apollo. And my failure on the first day led to a not too successful further 2 days of the training course as well. Apollo came to being by Hexagon acquiring a number of geospatial companies and then mishing all the various software together. So it had components like ER Mapper's image web server and Red Spider's crawling and cataloging facility. And all those components were put together into one product, but it wasn't the most unified product. Now, flash forward to the end of last year, and I went on another training course, and that was for ERDAS Apollo as well. But specifically, it was for ERDAS Apollo 2023, and my, how things have changed. As I'm going to show you, the interface and all the components are now streamlined. Installing Imagine is an absolute snap, and really it was a complete revelation to how the product had been in the past. It had been growing all the time and getting better and better over time. But this current version of Apollo is really a completely new paradigm in its evolution. I'm afraid you don't get away without a little PowerPoint presentation, and so let me just fire that up now. Okay, and I hope everyone can see that screen. Let me just get that going. Can I have a thumbs up, Harry, if it's all looking good to you? Nice one. Okay, so, I mean, the first question, I know from the list of potential attendees that we've got some Apollo users already with us. We've got some people who are new to Apollo, so it's a good start anyway to think about what is Apollo. And I'm just going to read this out and then I'm going to talk around it. So ERDAS Apollo provides a comprehensive data management server solution that helps identify, locate, secure, and organize your geospatial and related business data into searchable, secured repository while enabling simple distribution through interoperable web services. What does all that mean? I've been to a fair few companies as a consultant going in to help them with their geospatial flow lines. And we're very much, I've been very much guilty of this myself in companies that I've worked for. My geospatial data is pretty well organized. It's all nicely backed up and it's all nicely regulated in folders. But if, for instance, I wanted to find data that we did as a project in 2019, maybe in South Wales, and the person who worked on that project has left the company, where do I go to find that data? I have to hunt through all the folders. I have to check out each individual folder to make sure I understand what data is there. It's all a bit of a palaver. And so Apollo helps out with that process. It can go away and search, crawl in the same way that web crawlers crawl through the internet. It can crawl through your geospatial data to find, identify, and tag with the associated metadata, all the geospatial data that you ask it to look for. It puts it all into a searchable catalog with a simple and powerful web interface so that you can go and find that data. And if you need to use it, you can set that data up as a web service, or you can download that data, the whole of the data, or you can just clip out a little bit of the data as well. And so that's what it is. It's just a streamlined way of taking care of your geospatial data. So why are things so different in the latest version of Apollo compared to previous versions? Well, Hexagon, as is their wont, have kept on acquiring geospatial companies, and around about 2017, 2018, they acquired a company called Luciad, who produce a series of software toolkits, geospatial toolkits, predominantly for the visualization and management of geospatial data. And that technology has been bleeding into all of the other Hexagon geospatial products, including ERDAS, Imagine, and Apollo is no exception. And the practical result of that is that from going from a disparate group of various different software, this has now all been formed into one cohesive whole, with Luciad providing the underlying architecture. And so instead of having a mishmash of software all coming together, we now have this cohesive whole structure. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but here's an example. I just want to take one example from here. So here's all a bit of a mishmash, and here's our cohesive whole. But I just want to have a look at this particular instance, which in Apollo 2022, we had 4 separate projection engines within this software. That's kind of, if you're a detective, a big clue as to the kind of how various disparate software are coming together into a single product. That's changed. We now have one projection engine. And if you look through the slide, you can see that everything has been simplified, and the amount of configuration that is required is just inordinately small compared to previously. So this is essentially what Apollo 2023 looks like, the various components of it. I'll be talking about all of these, most of these, a little bit later, so I won't stray too long on that. But what I will do is have a quick mention about what it looks like. And so if you have, for whatever reason, used Luciad Fusion before, you'll be very familiar with this, this interface. If you've used other Hexagon geospatial products such as Map Enterprise, you'll be familiar with this interface because it's all standard Luciad Fusion interface. However, the parts highlighted in orange are specific to Apollo. So those have been developed by the Apollo team. And so it's essentially Luciad Fusion, but with extra functionality, which is useful to the Apollo administrator. Now, I told you a little bit about my trials and tribulations of installing Imagine. I've got Imagine on the brain. Installing Apollo. I think far too much about Imagine. I should really stop. About installing Apollo and how it took me a day when I first tried it. Things have changed considerably. And so now, if you know, first of all, how to set up a database, pretty simple. You can get a PostGIS database up and running in no time. And if you know how to click next, then you know how to install Apollo version 2023, because that's all you need. Obviously, as you run through the installer, there are plenty of things that you can do to configure it and fine tune it for your own installation if you so wish. But if you don't, next, poof, installed, which is rather different. And it's an absolute joy. I'll talk a little bit about the configuration console because I'll show that. So when we come to look at the demonstration in a moment. But with 2023, there are also a rejigging of the tiers. We've also always had Essentials, Advantage, and Professional in Apollo, but now we have recategorized functionality that was previously available in Apollo, and there's a whole heap of extra functionality added in as well. And so Essentials, which essentially used to be just EOAPA's image web server, that's no longer just relevant for raster data, and really it's a whole geospatial data management server. So you can have raster, vector, other geospatial data inside there. You can serve all that out. You've got the catalog functionality. You have all the calling capability. It's very, very feature rich just at the Essentials level. Advantage, it takes you to 3D. And so if you have elevation data, if you have point clouds, panoramic data sets, then that's where the Advantage comes in. And Professional has geoprocessing, and I'll talk to a little bit about the geoprocessing as we go through the demo as well. A little bit more detailed look at what's happened. If you can just see, I hope this comes over well enough, but we got little arrows to the left of the individual entities here. And if you've got a little blue down arrow, that means that that functionality has been demoted to Essentials. And so you can see that what used to be an Advantage is all, a lot of it is all coming out into Essentials now. One or two things stay the same, and so we've got 3D capability, point cloud, CADs stays the same. But one thing has been promoted from previous Advantage, and that's what used to be called clip, zip, and ship, and is now called, probably a little bit more professionally, the data extraction service. So on any of these levels, you can download the data. The data extraction service gives you some fine-grained functionality that allows you to clip out areas, change formats, bulk download, zip up files, and just gives you the kind of professional download capability. And then, like a little bit of sprinkling on top, we have some maritime and aviation standards included in the professional level as well. And so there's a lot more value to your Essentials than there ever was previously. And all of this extra new functionality coming in at the Advantage and the professional level as well. Just a quick one to show that there's a lot more formats supported in 2023 than there has been in previous versions as well. And those formats are only increasing. And again, that's a great thing of Luciad, is that it's relatively straightforward to take on and support new formats if required as well. So that's the end of that. And now, with my breath a little bit bated, we're going to head over and look at the software in real time. Now, there's a slight warning. My Apollo instance is running on a virtual machine on my machine, which is not an optimum way of doing things, but it's been working fine all today. And so unless it goes into a horrendous demo mode, I think we're good. Just to show you the virtual machine, here it is. And I'll tell you what, I'll show you what comes up when we get to the end of our installation process. And so imagine we've fired up the download for Apollo. We've clicked next all the way along. We've input some parameters about the database and licensing. Then this is what comes up. And so here's our configuration console, where we can click through and we can change parameters if we wish. And again, all of this is just so much easier compared to the various component configuration that was going on in previous versions. We've got it both running, that's looking good. But right at the bottom here, we have diagnostics. And if anything, this is good to check to make sure that everything is hunky-dory. Excuse me. And so if you click on that, it runs through. and everything should be hunky-dory, except, yeah, indeed, I haven't set an email server up on this virtual machine, and so that's kind of missing, but everything else is fine and dandy. So that's good. Let's get rid of that, and let's log into the studio. Okay, well, we saw this administration interface in the PowerPoint presentation. I'll go through all the. Oh, I won't go anywhere near through all the functionality, but I'll give you a good idea of the flavor of the kind of things that we can do in here as well. So first off, we have our data tab. There's a couple of ways that we can look at this. Oh, that's interesting. I need to select some data in the table. Let's have a look at the folder. We can go through folder browsing. And so we can look at, say, in the Maxar folder, cataloging. And I've just noticed this shouldn't be here. Bear with me while I do a little bit of admin. I will just get rid of that, and then we can bring that back in, and I'll show you how easy that is to do. Okay, I'll go back to data. If I have a look at root, excellent, that's better. So here's all our data. We can search the data as well. If we've got a keyword, let's have a look. And there we go. We can bring up the Maxar data that I brought in. This is just demonstration data that you can download from Maxar's website. And so just brought some of that in. We can assign, or we can generate and assign styles to the geospatial data that we have. So we can add vector style, we can add in an SLD style, so a kind of portable XML file that we can use to style data. And then if you're familiar with ERDAS Imagine, then there's image chain styling as well, which we can use for raster data. You can combine data and styles together into products, and you can either serve products or individual data as services. And so here we have a bunch of web services that we can create. What have we got here? ECWP, which is Imagine's image web server format. We got 3D tiles. We got elevation data as LTS, WMS. Yeah, so there's a fair few services that we can do. I'll have a look at that in a second as well. Jobs, notification, analytics, kind of a little bit of background, data analysis that we can look at to see what jobs are going. Geoprocessing, I'll come back to in a second, because that's the geoprocessing is at the professional level. And then we have settings, and I'll go through there. There's some interesting stuff that we can do there as well. Okay, so if we have a look at the data again, let's have a look at this. Is this the one I'm looking for? Yes, it is. Yep, it's just taking a little bit of time to come in. When the data is crawled, it crawls the actual geospatial data, but it also then either it creates some metadata for it, and then it picks up any metadata that it has associated with it as well. And so we can have a look at that, and you can see the kind of metadata that's being picked up. We have a look at reference system, and then we got some other standard data. We can edit this metadata, and we can add to it, and also we can do that in bulk as well. So if you bring in a bunch of project data, then you can assign metadata to that in bulk, and that's cool. We can create a service straight off here. We can create a product, we can create a service, and that means that we can create a WMS or WMTS from this data, or indeed an ECWP. I won't do that right now because invest Blue Tweeter style. I've got one that I prepared earlier, and here's the service created from it. It's a WMS. It's running nicely. These services, if it's straight WMS, WMTS, WFS, they pop up all really quickly. If it's 3D, it takes a little bit more time to do. But yeah, here we have our endpoint URL. And so let's just copy that. And then, oh, let's get that out of the way and bring up that. Okay. And then we can have a look in the WMS, WMTS. Oh, yes, that one I've already done already. Okay, we can just bring that in. And so it's a really good way of, or a really simple way of being able to create some web services from your geospatial data as well. Bing, there we go. It's come in, lovely. And then if we pop back to settings, data routes, I'll come back to right at the end. We have a map preview. I've modified this a bit. Generally, you have just a sort of low res raster of the world. We've got some status. You can see that using on my virtual machine, my memory is quite high. I don't have a lot of free memory on the edge here. Always like doing demos on the edge. Users, so we can set up users and roles together to provide fine-grained security for all the data that you come in. So there's some standard users: admin, studio manager, and consumer. Admin can do everything, including create users and roles. Studio manager can do everything except users and roles, and a consumer can just look at the data or view the data and download the data. It can't actually affect anything within the studio itself. And so all of these can be assigned either globally, or if you bring in specific data, they can be assigned for that specific data. And so it really is fine-grained as to who can do what with whatever data. And so you can also, within the data, you can set up particular areas that they can work on and not see or not be able to use the other data as well. And so it's really fine-grained as to what the security capability is. Not very interesting. Crawling defaults, and so these are all changeable on individual cases, but we can set these across the board. So if you go away and set up a crawling job, then this will be what happens. We have a range of metadata parsers available. The ISO 1 is by the standard. I've added one in for Maxar as well, and if it doesn't pick up metadata using the first parser, then it'll go on to the next one and use that, and so on. Let's go back to the data routes. Now, these are the areas which I'm currently crawling for data. And so all of these are local, except this one, which is on my own machine. And you can see it's got a UNC address there. We can also crawl data in databases. We can crawl data on Amazon S3 as well. So you're not restricted to just whatever you have available in the office. But let's add in a data route. And the way that we can do that is go back to data and add data. And we have options here. I'm going to add a data route. We can also, like I say, add other options available. And I'm going to click on the path, and it's already where I want it to be. So I'll select that. We can have a look at the advanced options. These are all picking out the global options at the moment. The security, here we go. We can add in a role, and there's the scale range. And yeah, so it's going to be the role of admin anyway, and then it can do individual for this particular crawl different parsers as well. But let's just click on add data. We got new data available. We got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, lots of new data available. If we go back to settings, here's our new data route there, and then if we go to jobs, then we have our crawl jobs going on. They're all idle, they're all complete. Let's have a look at this model one. We can see the last time it happened, which was a minute ago. And then on the right-hand side here, we've got what was actually crawled. And so we've got a bunch of .img files. Have we got any TIFF files in here? We've got a TIFF file in here as well, yep. And so those have all been successfully crawled, and then you can see there's a bunch of skipped files which the crawler doesn't recognize as geospatial data, and they're reduced resolution data sets, spatial models, and so on. And so those have been skipped. That's a one-time crawl job. If we want to monitor that directory so that it picks up any changes within the directory, easy to do. Click on configuration. We got a few options here, and so we can, if things are moved out, we can detect that. Although that means it'll go away if it's crawled. But the schedule, we can either do an advanced one and set up a cron job, or very simply, we can just say, what should we do? Well, for the purposes of this webinar, let's do every minute and click on apply changes. And now, as we're looking at the admin interface, you'll see every now and again that the crawl job is happening in the background. And that's all we need to do to do that. Moving back to geoprocessing, excuse me. We have, let me just get rid of that. Okay. We have a number of system processes. And so what are these processes? Well, they are spatial models. Here we're looking at ERDAS Imagine, and here's a spatial model. And what this is doing is it's taking a digital surface model, a digital terrain model, and a color infrared data set. And it's looking at areas which are vegetated, so it's thresholding the NDVI from the color infrared data set, and it's taking a relative height from the digital surface model, digital terrain model, putting it all together, classing that up. And if we have a look at the preview of this model, what we get is, if I just turn the bottom layer off, is a heighted vegetation layer. And so the darker it is, the higher it is. And so if we zoom in a little bit, there we go. We can see the output from this model on top of the original data. And so we can use these models as geoprocessing within Apollo as well. We can also use them just by the by in GeoMedia and just by the by in Map Enterprise and MapX. And so these models are portable throughout a range of geospatial, hexagon geospatial software. How to do it? We just upload the model that we want to use. Put a publisher, who is me, and then add or update that, and that should come in and add on to the process there. And that's all ready for us when we come to look at that in the catalog. And this is where we move over to the catalog. Again, a simple web interface. And it's just the one interface as well. Let's log in here. And opening up, we're presented with a map of the world. We have our layer list here. At the moment, we've just got the grid and OpenStreetMap. We have some information or some functionality here. And then I'll show you this in a little bit as well. But let's first of all see if I can remember where New York is. I obviously can't. Oh yeah, that's not too bad. Okay. I've never been. I'm not a local. And then we have a couple of search buttons, or we have a few search buttons up here. And for this one, we're just going to use the simple search, which is search for anything within these map bounds. And so I'll click on that. It's going away, searching for data. And there we go. We have some data available over this area. Let's add some in. And so we can go down to the ortho and add that onto the map. Let me just get rid of the footprints. It's kind of confusing. And then we can have a look at some vector centerline data. There we go. And we can have a look at some buildings as well. Great. So that's how easy it is to search and find data. So we've picked out some raster and vector data over this area. We can also add in 3D data as well. If I go to data and 3D tiles and have a look at some 3D tiles, let me search for New York, and there we go. I can get those layers and add them in. Okay, there they are, they come in. However, we can't see a lot of that because we are currently in a 2D view. No problem, we can click on the 3D button here and we can go to the world and we can zoom in on that data that we have just added in. Super, and now in the 3D environment we can visualize that 3D data within the browser. All of this thanks to Luciad, great stuff. And we can also download data as well. So if we wanted to download the ortho, for instance, then we could just click on the download button here. Yeah, let's override it so I can put it somewhere, and then we can put it in that folder. That's fine. We'll upload that and we'll say, yes, I do trust myself. That's fine. And up that data goes into my folder. And so now I've got downloaded version of that ortho. There is a way of being more fine-grained about that. Like I say, instead of clicking on download, I can add it to a cart. And then from there, this is all functionality available in Professional. If you remember, it's the data extraction service. So I can clip the downloads, I can change the output formats. It's vector, similarly, I can change the format there. I can bundle them, like I said. We can get email notifications. Oh, that reminds me. One thing I didn't show you is that within the catalog, within the admin, you can set up areas of interest. And if any data is added in that area of interest, then you can set up users to be emailed and notified that there's no new data within their area of interest, which is kind of neat as well. And so, yeah, you can add in as much data as you like and set it up for download, bulk download in the data extraction service. But simple downloads, that's available across Essentials and Advantage, so that's easy. We can save workspaces as well. So if I go up here, I can click on Workspace and Save As, and I'll call this New York Webinar. And I click on that. Oh, okay. Blah. And click OK. And my NY workspace has now been saved. And if I wanted to do this, I could click on a new workspace, get rid of it. And then I could click on that again, workspace, and explore all the workspaces that I have available. There's the one that I want. Click on open, and back we are with all that data saved and the view saved as well. And so it's really easy to switch between different searches, different projects, all within the browser. That's neat. Let's get a new workspace up. And yeah, we do. And let's have a quick look at the advanced search as well. So here, instead of just searching for everything within the bounds, we can set up some more refined searches. I'm going to use unrestricted, and so we can look everywhere. Keywords, let's have a look for Maxar data. We can have chronological searches as well, different types. I'm only interested in raster types, and there's some various other options as well, but I realize time is going, so let's search for that Maxar data. Okay, and so the red box there shows the bounds of all the Maxar data that we have. If we want to hone in on a particular area, then we can use the selection tools that we have up here, and so let's click over there. add that in and zoom to the data. We're over Barcelona in the Ramblers. Lovely. I'll click the footprint layer off again. And let's have a look at this data set and zoom to that. We're over in Denver again now. And we're going to look at some Legion data. And so Maxar Legion, it's the latest suite of sensors that Maxar have launched. They now have 6 in orbit. 2, I think, are currently operational. 2 are going to be or have already just become operational. And 2 were launched end of last month. And so they have all 6 Legion now in orbit. I'll just have a quick look at the Legion data because it really is quite spectacular. There's a couple of things worth noting about it. Let's have a look. There we go. The first thing is that a lot of Earth observation satellites are in sun-synchronous orbit. Legion are in this non-sun synchronous orbit, which means that they can pick up a lot more data between these latitudes, which is about the 47th parallel north and south. Unfortunately, that means London and the UK is kind of a little bit of outrange, even with their off-nadir ponting ability. But it does mean that areas within their observation path can now be viewed by Maxar data up to 15 times a day. And so if we have a look at Paris, for instance, then a mix of Legion, GeoEye, Worldview can do that multiple times a day. And so it's getting, when I started out, trying to find data was a real problem. And nowadays it's trying to find out what to do with all the data that you have available. That's a little bit of a problem. But we got 30 centimeter resolution data on this Legion data, and yeah, it's really quite spectacular if I can get in and see it. Now, good thing about the cataloging in Apollo. It didn't catalog the TIFF files for the Legion data. It cataloged the .til files. And that means, for those who are familiar with it, that it's using a rational function in order to more accurately locate the data on the ground. And so if we split the view here and have a look at it over OpenStreetMap, and let's bring in that one. There we go. We can see that we're looking at the kind of accuracies associated with rational functions, which is definitely within 10 meters, probably better than plus minus 5 meters on the ground. If we are looking at the TIFF file, things would be very different and things would be much more displaced from the underlying data. And so we can bring in Maxar data already pretty well referenced to compare and contrast with other data on the ground as well. In fact, can I do this? Let's look at the base map. Can we have a look at Bing Map satellites? And if I compare that with the Bing Map satellite, there we go. You can see there's a little bit of a shift between the two, but they're pretty good. Let's go back to this. And so, yeah, there we go, baseball field, and it looks like people on the baseball field out there. Oh no, that's Bing, isn't it? So let's get rid of that. No people on the baseball field here. That would have been aerial photography from the Bing maps. And what else have we got? I know enough to know that this is probably a American football field. And there we go. That's all I know about that. So we can save this workspace. Let's just do that. And I'll save that as Maxar and webinar. Okay, good. And then let's have a look at a new workspace. Get rid of this. That's good. And let's search for from the Rocky Mountains to Slough in the UK. Hooray. Not the most salubrious of places in the UK. They've been doing a bit over the last few years, try and make the town look a little bit better. Not necessarily worked. Let's have a look at what data we've got here. We've got the color infrared. There we go. We've seen this as the base in ERDAS Imagine a little bit earlier. We have a DTM, we have a DSM as well. And so in the same way that we ran the spatial model in ERDAS Imagine, we can run that model here in Apollo as well. And so we've got a list of all the kind of built-in models, and right down the bottom here, we got vegetation one. Let's change that to veg 3, and then we can start the geoprocessing job. So we got digital surface model, digital terrain model, output name, and the raster image, which is the color infrared. Let's start that geoprocessing job. It's going away. That's good. We can check up on it in the studio if we like. Let's have a look at what jobs are going on. 99%, caught that just in time. 100% successful. We haven't seen that going on in the background, but let's just start this as well. And there we go. We've got veg 3 just come in there as well. And so if we go back to the catalog explorer, and if I just refresh the data here, and then we've got veg 3, we can bring that in. And there we go. Geoprocessing data done within ERDAS Apollo, and then added to the catalog. The automatic crawling would have picked it up, but I couldn't really wait for it. And then brought into the catalog and able to be viewed and distributed along with all the other data that is available. Okay, that's pretty much it from me. So I hope that's given a good overview of the kind of capabilities and especially the ease of use of Apollo 2023. I think this is going to be reiterated, but if there's anything that you'd like in particular us to cover, then we're very happy to do so, either through another webinar or through a quick tip video. There's a fair few of those. None of them on Apollo yet, but there'll be some shortly available on our YouTube channel. But yeah, I hope I've managed to convey some of the enthusiasm I have for this current version of Apollo to you, because I really am very much enthused about this. So I'm going to stop there.